Dante No. Today I'll be talking about the topic of homelessness for my English 102 final project. Well, to start off with homelessness, we gotta talk about what is the definition. Well, by dictionary definition, it is the state of having no home. But the word home is very subjective to me, and it's not really an object, but more a personal feeling, the word home. So I researched the governmental term, per se, of homelessness, and it states by the SSA, or also known as the Social Security Admission. They defined the word homelessness as an individual with no permanent living arrangement, i.e., no fixed place of residence. So now we know what homelessness is by definition. We now have to look at the history of what homelessness is. The history of homelessness isn't that far back as we think in the United States. According to the NCBI, or also known as the National Center of Biotechnology Information, homelessness became a nation problem after the Civil War in the 1870s, and the term homelessness was used for a person traversing the U.S. in search of work. So the people after the war, so the soldiers after the war, they came back home and they didn't have much family and needed to provide for their family. So they went out to look for jobs because they were jobless, and they became the term of homelessness. So fast forward a few years later, a term of hobo was adopted in the 1880s by Western Americans to soften the public perception of tramps. A tramp are a person in search of work with a love of an open road and disdain for the constraints for workers in industrialized America. So essentially, a hobo and tramp are the same thing. And essentially, that is a person that went search for work, right? And while they're searching for work, traveling the U.S., they fell in love with the open road. They fell in love with nature. They didn't want to go back to work, or it was very hard for them to go back to work. So these people became tramps and hobos. They fell into this category what others saw, and so they were considered as tramps and hobos. So now we know what the history behind a homelessness is, the history behind the word. Now we need to figure out, what do we currently define homelessness in today's society? Now that we know what the history of the word homelessness is, or who a homeless person is, we gotta look at, what do we now consider the word homelessness? So we, as a country, state homelessness into three different categories. And these categories are based on those who visit shelters, or stay in shelters, or live in shelters, however you want to put it. And these categories are transient, episodic, and chronic. The transient are made up of 80% of people who have been homeless or currently homeless. But these people are those who had stayed at the shelter for a single or very short brief stay, for like 1, 2, or 3 short nights, and they left and didn't come back. The episodic are made up of 10% of people who stayed at the shelter for brief stays, similar to the transient, for like 2 to 3 days, but the difference is they came back later in the future. So they stayed for a brief stay, left, came back, stayed for another brief stay, left, and then came back, and then left, and never came back again. And now we have the chronic. The chronic people are made up of the last 10%, and these people are very different from the transient and episodic. The chronic, these people, they are those that spend night after night after night in the shelters, and on average of that 10%, on average they spend more than 100 days, or 100 nights I should say, more than 100 nights in the homeless shelters that are provided by the organizations. More than 100 nights. So now we know how we section off, or what we categorize homelessness as now, how we define them. Now we gotta know what causes homelessness. The cause of homelessness can vary from each person, but it comes down to the same thing for each person, and it's not having enough money. So let's talk about not having enough money. This can come from a whole lot of different sources: politics, inflation, accessibility to resources, influences, and bad habits. And politics and inflation go hand to hand by affecting what things cost, and if the job you work you should get paid less or more compared to your other counterpart co-workers. So this is second, if not very close first, to the leading causes of homelessness, because of being unable to afford for a rent, pay for simple things like food, transportation, the necessities essentially. Arguably the first reason of homelessness is influences and bad habits, typically drug or alcohol related abuse. So when they use too much of it, and it starts affecting how they spend their money, where they spend their money, and now they can't afford rent or pay for food and the necessities, and now they end up homeless. And the more uncommon cause of homelessness is the lack of accessibility to resources. So now we figure out the causes of homelessness, the main causes of homelessness. What are the actions that are being taken to solve this in the United States? So what actions are we currently doing to solve the problem of homelessness in the United States of America? So many organizations like National Alliance to End Homelessness and We Are In are partnering together to create shelters for those in need. And these shelters are neat, and they're creating high occupancy shelters and trying to increase them for the homeless people. There are also some organizations providing rehab with drug and alcohol related things. And if some of them, or many I should say, of the main causes of homelessness is abuse of drug and alcohol related substances, and if they're able to get that rehab, it will get them back on their feet, and it helps them with probably even fixing the problem of homelessness if they are able to deal with rehab correctly and thoroughly, right? And they're also providing free food for the homeless, and some organizations are also giving job interviews if they're at the right capacity. So those are the current actions that are being taken to resolve homelessness. We as a country are doing so much to help them as the homeless people, and yet the numbers aren't getting better. So what is the problem, and can we really solve this? Can this be solved? Can homelessness be solved, or can we at least figure out why can it not be solved? I think the question is quite simple and isn't that difficult to answer, mainly because we already know the leading causes of homelessness today. Like, what are the causes going on today? We already know that. And we are already, as a country, actively trying to take this problem down. So, and this is shown by organizations of mass, large groups of people coming together, fundraising, sharing awareness, building shelters, creating rehab programs, giving free food away, all this being volunteered. So I think the question isn't that hard. It's just a matter of time. Do we have time? Or not do we have time, but is the time limited? Right? So I think after 15, 20 years, will the fund still be going at the same rate it is now? Would it be less? So, or will people after 15, 20 years continue to believe that we could solve this problem and continue to actively try and take this down even after say 10 years and there isn't that much progress, right? Will people still continue? So I think the answer is just a matter of time, because we've already put this into action, right? So now we know that homelessness is based on like time. The solution is based on time because we've already put that in play. We're already putting that in work. So now we know we just have to wait and see if what we're doing and these actions are creating shelters, providing food for people, and all this rehab and all this funding. We just have to see and wait. And we have to see what the future would look like, right? So next we got to talk about the future. In the future, is it projected to continue going bad, or will it be fixed? Well, the future isn't looking so good for the homelessness right now. And if homelessness keeps going at the rate it is, and we're unable to solve it, we are predicted to triple, not 2 times, triple the amount and within a decade or so, time span of a decade or so. And this is according to a new study of researchers. It's a multi-study of different universities. So the universities are Pennsylvania, California of Los Angeles, New York University, and Boston University. The reasoning is because elderly people are getting very expensive to take care of now. And there's a mass amount of elderly that are being like poor. It's just on the brim of homelessness, and it's like these elderly people predicted to just increase over the years, and they won't have enough money, right? So they predicted, because of the expense, they predicted that the homelessness was of 65-year-olds and older will scale a lot. So currently, for 65-year-olds and older homeless people, there's only about 40,000 people or so, right, at the moment. And as in the new research of the different universities, predict that it will go from 40,000 homeless elderlies to 106,000 homeless elderly people. So by 2030, so from 40,000 to 160,000 by 2030. So the future isn't looking so good, looking so great for homelessness, even with all the current programs. But this type of homelessness is completely way different from what we're dealing with now, and it mainly because this new wave of homeless people that's gonna start popping up apparently is they won't be able to take care of themselves or make enough money to support themselves. So it's going to be a challenge to solve for challenge to solving another challenge to solving the problem of homelessness. So what is the solution to this new and upcoming problem of homelessness of elderly people? It's something not many people have answered or researched because it's something that's very, very new. And I think the best answer, if this was to happen, is to mandate senior discounts on all groceries and try to apply even on rent and bills and similar things like that. And I think it will make it things very way easier for them because easier for elderly people to pay for stuff because it's not expensive and they can't come up with a vast amount of money as young people can because they aren't working as much and they're codependent on what they've saved up over the years. So yeah, it's very unfortunate. Hello, my name is Dante Noun. Today I'll be interviewing you on the topic of homelessness for my English 102 final project. Please introduce yourself, name, age, and what you do for work.
Hi, my name is Kwano, 44 years of age, and I'm in the entertainment business.
The questions that I'll be asking you today on the topic of homelessness are the following. Please answer to your best of your ability. What do you define homelessness as?
People not having a roof over their head.
Okay. What do you think are the main causes of homelessness in today's society?
The causes of homelessness is no self accountability, no responsibility, um, not any type of self motivations to do or to be better.
Okay, thank you. What are we as a country doing to try to solve the problem of homelessness?
Um, Solving homelessness is the country shouldn't be doing anything. The first start to solve homelessness is um, individual person themselves. They need to hold themselves accountable. They need to hold themselves responsible to start improving themselves to improve to eliminate homelessness. A country can't help homelessness unless they help themselves.
So, do you think as a country we should promote more awareness and to become a better individual and to strive to always become better? Do you think that will be your solve to homelessness?
Yes, I believe the start of solving homelessness is every individual person that's homeless. They need to work on themselves to become better, stop having excuses, believe that they can do better and get out of this homelessness mental mentality. Um, Once that is in their mind, then I believe that will solve all homelessness.
Do you think this problem of homelessness is something that can actually be solved, or is it something you think that's going to always be around?
I think it will always be around because there's too many people that feel sorry for themselves. Too many people have excuses to not want to do something, and that there's too much help out there that allow them to be lazy and non-motivated to become better. So um, I do not think that it can be solved because I do not feel there's enough self-motivation to be better.
So you don't think it will directly be terminated, but you think it can be slowed down, possibly? Is that right?
Yes, I do not think that it will completely, homelessness can never be completely wiped out, but definitely can be lessened if the country stop um, helping too much with the sources, but to actually teach them to be more motivated.
Um, okay. Thank you for interview, um, coming to this interview today. I would like to end this interview, and that will be it.
Thank you.
Throughout my research, I've come to realize that there are two main types of viewpoints on those who are homeless: the despised and the sympathized. The despised are those people who look down on homeless people, thinking they are disgusting and want nothing to do with them. While on the other hand, the sympathized are those who care and want to help those that are homeless, giving them small change on the street like money, giving food to them, or even giving clothes, some even volunteering for certain fundraising events. I interviewed my father, who takes part in the entertainment field and takes part as in work. He's done this for a while, a very long time, pretty much almost all his life. He is 44 years old, who which have seen many or at least been around and dealt with homeless people. And I've asked him the same question I asked myself while doing my research for this project. These questions consist of: what is homelessness? What are the causes of homelessness? What are we as a country doing to solve homelessness? Can this be solved? And what is the solution? I've concluded that my father is one that falls under the group of people who despise homelessness. After interviewing him, I was able to understand his viewpoint and what he believes. He believes it is not the role of the government to fix homelessness directly, but to influence change within society. His reasoning behind this is, and I quote, "Homelessness is a mentality," end quote. So it is not something we can directly help, but it's something that an individual should take on their own.